Is it just me that remembered when Bola Ahmed Tinubu once said, if he did not do well, Nigerians should vote him out? My people, do you think Nigerians are woke enough to actually do so? Or do you think that's exactly what's going to happen? Let me know in the comments. Okay, good people of the world, it's a beautiful Monday morning. Good morning to you, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on wherever you're watching from. Now, according to Arise News TV, this is what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said. Tinubu asked APC Campaign Council to defeat forces seeking to take Nigeria backwards. So, do you know that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has now formally taken charge as chairman of the APC Presidential Campaign Council ahead of the 2027 election, with Senator Abdulaziz Jari appointed as Director General and other top APC figures taking up various positions. And while addressing members of the campaign council, Tinubu urged them to work tirelessly to secure victory for the APC. He also told them to confidently showcase the achievements of his administration and, in his words, defeat those he described as forces seeking to take Nigeria backwards. And the beauty of democracy is if a government does well, keep them. If they don't do well, vote them out. At the end of the day, it is supposed to be the people who decide, not the politicians, Abi.
The lead story says Tinubu asked APC Campaign Council to defeat forces seeking to take Nigeria backwards. Yesterday when we were, on the program, we made the announcement when we were just reminding one of our guests that, 3-4 days into the campaign for the presidential election, none of the parties, adding us at that time.
Yeah, I think they might have heard you. And they quickly rushed to action because...
And announced that he's ready. It's just that we've not announced formally.
Yes.
But of course, APC has taken the lead, and we now have the list of those almost 300 or something, more than 230 of them all. But the writers here, of course, highlight what the president is saying. President heads campaign council. Yari, former governor of Zamfara State, emerges as DG, accepts appointment. Shetima Yuada named vice chairman. Uzodinma secretary. And then ADC saying APC Campaign Council, a rehabilitation center for corruption suspects. That's one key aspect that we will have asked, our third guest, because we were going to focus on this appointment and the internal wranglings within the APC on the one hand, and then opposition parties saying that, what list are you talking about when you have people who have been indicted, whose cases have not been resolved, but then you are appointing them as part of your campaign council. Is that right?
Well, it's interesting to hear President Tinubu ask the APC campaign to defeat forces seeking to take Nigeria backwards, when it looks like a lot of people on that list were the ones allegedly trying to take Nigeria backwards. So very interesting to see how those names tucked into that list. But I think one of the things mentioned, which we didn't have a chance to talk about with the guests today, isn't just the some of the issues that internally APC members are having with this list. Isn't just the people who are under investigation with EFCC or ICPC. Also, there are a lot of shall I say seasoned or veteran politicians who have been recalled to be a part of this campaign, which I think some of the newer or younger APC members are saying, well, why are we going back in time? We need young faces, we need fresh faces.
You're talking about the advisory council to the president?
not to, point fingers or call any names. Those who know the president well will say that that's a smart move. Just to be inclusive, just to bring, practically everybody on board. I think it is only Wike, that you can say is left out, and he's explaining himself here, in the second lead story, which is on top of the lead here. Wike, I won't risk losing Rivers. FCT for APC Presidential Campaign DG's job. Mocks Amechi, Saraki, Tambua, Lalong for losing their states. Of course, that when it comes to, political engineering, Wike's name most definitely, will come up. I'm not sure if it's always for the right reasons, but of course his name will always be there. And it has been said, in the past that, will Wike be the DG for the campaign? Will it be Hope Uzodinma, the governor of Imo State? It turns out that Hope Uzodinma will serve as secretary, while the former governor of, Zamfara, Yari, who, by the way, was defeated 3.5 years ago, by Akpabio for the position of Senate President.
is now the campaign. People are saying that this is strategy on the part of the APC, a strategy on the part of, the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because he feels that he needs somebody up there in the north that can, like he has said, defeat forces seeking to take Nigeria backward. Who might the president be referring to? But of course, we know that Atiku will be number one on the list, given what he has released as part of his campaign, agenda, saying that I will go back to fuel subsidy. I will revisit it. I may not go back in the manner that it was being done before, but I certainly will revisit it, because I think, that's Atiku speaking, is one of the issues that has impoverished Nigerians more, and they need some succor. They need more than a bag of rice. They need more than palliatives. That's what Atiku is saying. But of course, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the incumbent president, the candidate of the APC, is saying to go back, to revisit the idea of subsidy will take Nigerian backward, and it will mean that you don't understand basic economics. That's what he is saying. But
and I think that there was a real lost opportunity there. I think it was important for Atiku to kind of put out something of what he plans to do just at the beginning of the campaign.
He did, and some of his spokespersons have been speaking
about it. Yes, but I think a more robust and substantial,
and simplified,
detailed, and simplified plan could have helped kind of avoid some of the criticisms that are now going around about this, because it does, from a distance and on paper, it does kind of look like going backwards, especially when we know that, Atiku was one of the major opposers of such an idea just a few years ago, right? So I think this was a real missed opportunity on his end to really just come out with the details of what the plan is, and, and to let people know, hey, listen, I understand the economics of this, and here's how this is going to help the average Nigerian. So
I think what he has succeeded in doing is to ignite a discussion, ignite conversation around the efficacy of subsidy removal. And he's saying that, for me, no policy should say that it can be revisited. You can always improve on policies. And I think that people are discussing, more submissions will be made on this very naughty issue of subsidy. And I think for me, the whole idea is not to demonize the word subsidy.
Right.
Because if you take subsidy for fuel away, and then you dash them 25,000, you dash them 50,000, a bag of rice, you are subsidizing their life, which has been made difficult by a policy that you initiated. It's a form of subsidy. Call it by another name. Then the question of the NNPC itself, under recovery on the one hand, which is, another name by which you are calling subsidy, or you are basically saying energy cost, energy support, 7.1 trillion, for 2024 here and there, is a way of subsidy. No country runs away from subsidy. Improve on how it's been done, because at the end of the day, when that subsidy regime was on, 40% of it was getting to the people anyway. It's just that we were unable to manage those who are stealing, the commonwealth of the people. Maybe we'll do better if we're able to deal with the thieves rather than bring some of them, at least those who are indicted, who might not have been convicted, back into the fold one way or the other. Any other story before we go to, on the cover of this day, before we go to,
this discourse was what I was going to talk about.
Right, I was going to go to plateau killings, but go on.
Yes,
go on.
Just to briefly touch on, this issue of discourse, and now they are looking at power shedding, which we've already started to experience. But as we just talked about a few minutes ago, Lagos State is looking at a really robust plan on its own end to figure out how to deal with this issue. So it's left to be seen what the outcome of that will be. But again, very interested in that review process, and I would like to see, a real substantial review, and also transparency on that. Let the people know what the issue actually is, so that we can deal with that going forward.
So if people are wondering what happened yesterday and has been happening repeatedly, basically, it's about the fact that discos are embarking on load shedding as power grid suffers partial collapse. Generation plunges to 1,132 megawatts. That's like a quarter of where we were. Where we were was not good at all. At 4,000, 5,000 megawatts. But then, promoting to 1,132 megawatts is just not good enough. It means that people will suffer, among every other thing that Nigerians are dealing with. The other one I was going to touch on was that the U.S. lawmaker fumes over plateau killings, accuses Nigerian government of failure to protect citizens. The story is on page 6 of today. Plateau on our minds yet again.
Yes.
Government will just have to do something about it. All these killings, as they will say, all this blood that we are shedding, it's not the best at this point in time, because whether you like it or not, the question of insecurity will be part of the scorecard by which this government will be measured as we go fully, in full throttle, into the campaign season.
Absolutely. Very important stories there. But if we can move on now to This Day Style and just take This Day Style. So on the cover of This Day Style, we have Daniel Amokachi, a.k.a. The Bull. And the story there reads, Daniel Amokachi has been called The Bull for so long that the nickname has almost become part of his name. It came from the way he played football, fast, powerful, and difficult to stop. At his peak, defenders who stood in his way often found themselves reduced to helpless spectators. Years after his last professional game, the nickname remains, as does the unmistakable presence that made him one of the most recognizable figures of a remarkable era in Nigerian football. So we have that story in This Day Style, along with a lot of other very interesting, as always, culture and fashion stories. And I think we were talking about this last week. It's always nice to see people being recognized for different, across different industries and across different sectors.
Absolutely.
So to see, a legendary football player from Nigeria, Daniel Amokachi.
It's definitely a story that I would like to read, written by Yinka Olatubosun, for This Day Style, picking, the bull, Daniel Amokachi.
Yes.
I believe he will be on record as the first Nigerian footballer, to own at that time a private jet.
Oh, wow.
He was that big. He was that big, and he was also at a point part of the coaching team, for Nigeria. It's good to celebrate somebody like that, but it's also good to see how they are reflecting on their career, on the state of football in Nigeria, particularly at the time now that NFF it's in some dire strait. People are saying, are they going to resign? Are they not going to resign? Are they being picked by the DSS? Are they not being picked by the DSS? What is happening to the Nigerian football? It will be interesting to see the perspective of Daniel, the Bull, Amokachi.
Absolutely.
All right, that brings us to the end of the morning show today. Thank you for watching, and stay safe. I'm Steve Ayorinde.
And I'm Tayo Bero. From our entire team here in Lagos, Nigeria. Enjoy the rest of your morning and, of course, the rest of your day.